Now, slavery had gone largely unquestioned, and this is a remarkable fact, I think, for modern people to understand how for the first 100 years almost of its existence, from the late 17th century almost to the era of the American Revolution, there had been very little questioning of slavery. It was just part of, it was something that had arisen, something that worked, and no one seemed to question it. But in that decade preceding the revolution, questions began to arise from a number of different sources. One was that for a number of years before that, a small group of Quakers in Pennsylvania had questioned slavery. They had thought that it didn't fit with religious values, that the values of each individual having the interlight from God conflicted with the idea of slavery. And so Quakers like John Woolman and Anthony Benezet had preached among the Quakers and even outside of the Quakers that slaveholding was wrong. But what began to break even more than that and spread it much more thoroughly were two things. One was the Great Awakening, which was an evangelical movement that had started really in the 1740s but picked up enormous steam by the 1760s. Of Protestantism, evangelical Protestantism, of groups and sects like the Methodist and the Baptist and the New Light Presbyterians. And again, there was a religious concept that all people were equal before God, and therefore holding people in slavery was wrong, that this violated that concept. So it entered a disturbing element for slaveholders. And then the other one happened at the intellectual level, at a much where the religious concepts often were of an emotional and spiritual feeling. The other attack on slavery came from the intellectual level, and that was the Enlightenment that spread over Europe and into North America, and in the 1760s. And there you had all sorts of ideas of human rights, of human dignity, of tolerance, a real questioning for harsh punishments, a number of things that had been taken for granted in the previous era, and slavery being one of the foremost of those. And so a real questioning arose among, at two levels really, among the ordinary people because of the awakening, and among the elite, the people who were educated, because of the Enlightenment. So this was a whole new intellectual climate that had arisen. And so the treatment and the ownership of slaves came in for questioning. People became suddenly uncomfortable with it. They had to begin defending it. One historian of slavery, Peter Colchin, terms it a watershed moment that separates the pre-modern and modern eras. We've referred to that several times earlier in the talk. And Colchin makes that point very distinctly. There were new ideas of natural rights, of political liberty, of freedom of religion, and equality before the law. And if you held those beliefs, if you considered them part of your personal system of beliefs, then it became difficult to hold slaves. So there was a contradiction was arising in the life of American slaveholders. Moreover, as we moved into the Revolutionary era, into the mid-1770s, we were fighting for those rights. We were proclaiming those rights. We were saying that those rights were the ones that the King of Britain and Parliament were ignoring. And so this contradiction of holding slaves and of claiming your rights became even sharper.